Oh, fuck! Fuck!
There's a reason the wilderness feels unsettling at night. Maybe it's the isolation, or the distant snap of a branch, or perhaps it's the feeling, deep, crawling under your skin, that something else is out there, watching, waiting. Tonight, we're diving into the 6 most disturbing camping encounters ever recorded. And the first one will make you question whether you're truly alone when you close your tent at night. Let's begin. This scary footage was recorded by Grizzly, an experienced solo camper known for his channel Grizzly Gaz. It was supposed to be just another night under the stars, but the wilderness had other plans. As he lay in his tent, the distant murmur of voices broke the stillness. At first, he thought it was just his mind playing tricks, the way the woods tend to distort sound. But the voices grew clearer, whispers, low and urgent, coming from somewhere just beyond his tent. His blood ran cold. No other campers were nearby. Then something hit his tent. Not a gentle brush of the wind, but a deliberate, forceful shove. His breath caught in his throat as he grabbed his flashlight, heart hammering.
Oh, fuck! 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 Fuck!
Bursting out of his tent, he swept the beam around, expecting to see someone, something. But there was nothing, just the empty, endless woods staring back at him. The whispers had stopped. The night was unnervingly still, as if the forest itself was holding its breath.
Oh, you're right. What the fuck was that? Fucking flies. Mate, come on. This is all torched now.
Trying to shake off the unease, he retreated back into his tent, forcing himself to believe it was just his imagination. But deep down, he knew better. Then later that night, the true terror began. As the camper later told, just as he was packing up his gear, the silence shattered. Screaming, dozens of voices, angry, fanatic, shouting in the dark. And then, the sound of running, heavy, pounding footsteps like a stampede, heading straight for his tent.
When I was packing up, I managed to get my my sleeping bag and everything and get that in my backpack. Then I heard loads and loads of screaming, like shouting from men, and it sounded like there were about 20 or 30 of them. And then they all started running, and it sounded like they were coming towards tent, so I just grabbed my bag and off skis, because my keys were in my bag.
His stomach twisted with fear. He didn't wait to see what was coming. He grabbed his bag and ran. When he returned in the morning, the campsite was in ruins. His tent was slashed, his belongings scattered, his cooking gear missing.
Snapped my poles in that. Sleep mat. Where's my cook kit? My cook kit were over here somewhere. Don't mind people scaring you and stuff out of woods, but when they're just going to break stuff as well, what's the point in that? Eh? Oh, it's got rips in that fly sheet as well, look at that.
Whatever had been there that night hadn't just scared him away, it had made sure he wouldn't come back. The forest was silent once more, but the damage told the real story. He was never supposed to stay. If this made your heart race, you must watch the next encounter. This horrifying video was recorded by 2 campers known from their channel Exploring the Unknown, who set out on June 18, 2023 just for fun. For these two searching for the perfect spot to set up for the night, the woods quickly became a place they desperately needed to escape.
Someone gave us some firewood.
They had just pulled over, scanning the area, deciding whether this secluded spot was good enough. Then the noises started, a faint rustling in the distance. At first, it could have been anything, the wind, an animal shifting through the underbrush.
Listen.
Turn off your lights.
But then came the footsteps, slow, measured, not the erratic scurry of wildlife, but something with purpose. The man tensed. He wasn't sure, but it almost sounded like voices, low murmurs, just beyond the reach of their headlights.
There's something crunching over there.
The woman tried to stay calm, suggesting it was probably just an animal, but deep down, they both knew this didn't feel right.
Thing, except for maybe one singular deer hiding somewhere. It didn't sound like a deer. Like it sounded maybe like a possum could be scrunching around, but
Then the footsteps moved closer. Something or someone was in those trees watching. That was enough. Without a second thought, the man turned the key and the car roared to life.
Not staying here.
yeah, but where are we? You have to put your key in your door.
The headlights slashed through the darkness, illuminating nothing but the empty road ahead. They sped off, hearts pounding, leaving the eerie whispers and unseen presence behind.
If the car is locked with key fob.
Ultimately, we decided to leave that neck of the woods.
But as the road stretched before them, an unsettling thought lingered. Had they just left in time, or had something been waiting for them to step outside? That's definitely going to give you nightmares, but the next one is somehow worse. This terrifying encounter was recorded by a solo camper from the Under the Weather channel. He got his peaceful night turned into pure terror in the worst ways possible.
I've got a knife in here. I've got a knife. I've got a knife.
After a long day of hiking, he set up camp deep in the woods, far from any roads or towns. The only sounds were the gentle rustling of leaves and the distant call of an owl. The solitude was comforting. No city noise, no distractions, just the quiet hum of nature. Exhausted, he crawled into his tent and let the stillness lull him to sleep.
Pretty cozy. I think I'm actually going to be too hot. That's about it. So, let's see.
But something woke him. A low, guttural growl. Deep, menacing, and too close for comfort. His eyes snapped open. His breath hitched in his throat. He lay motionless, ears straining in the dark. A bear? A coyote? His mind raced through possibilities, but something felt wrong. The growl had an almost human quality to it, a deep vibration that settled into his bones. Then he heard it. Laughter. Not a joyful human laugh.
Heard that noise again. It sounds like somebody laughing outside, but I have no idea. Huh, unless it's the kelpies. Oh. Hello?
Not even the nervous chuckle of another camper. This was slow, deliberate, twisted, and unnatural, just inches from his tent. His blood ran cold. Something or someone was out there, and it wanted him to know it. First, the camper tried to scare the thing away.
I've got a knife in here. I've got a knife. I've got a knife. Right. Well, that definitely sounded like somebody there.
His fingers curled around the knife beside him, his knuckles white. His instincts screamed at him to stay silent, to not even breathe, but his heart pounded so hard he feared it would give him away. He strained to hear more, but the night had fallen deathly silent. No wind, no insects, nothing. Just an oppressive stillness pressing in around him, or maybe the river outside. Minutes stretched into eternity. The growling faded, the laughter stopped, but he didn't relax. He lay there, gripping his knife, eyes wide open, until the first light of dawn crept through the tent.
So they say, how did you sleep? I'm like, great. Like a psycho with a knife. Good night. Good night. Good night. What the hell was that? Oh, it's just my pillow. Right. Come on, you big scaredy cat. That's it.
Only then did he force himself to move. Cautiously, he unzipped the tent and stepped outside. The air was still. The ground around his campsite was undisturbed. No footprints, no broken branches, no sign that anything or anyone had been there. And yet, he knew what he had heard.
I can open this with one hand. Oh, hello? Oh, look at that. Sunshine. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Oh. Oh, you can tell it's autumn. It's not yet winter.
He walked the perimeter of his campsite, searching for any explanation. A fallen tree, an animal carcass, anything that could rationalize the sounds from the night before. But the forest looked the same as it had when he arrived.
Everything seems in order. Yeah.
He packed up his camp in record time, constantly glancing over his shoulder, half expecting to see a figure standing at the tree line. But the woods remained empty.
I guess time for me to get out of here, and well, I can still live to tell another tale.
Whatever it was, one thing was certain. In the wild, you might feel alone, but something out there knows you're there, and sometimes it wants you to know it's there too. Did you find this terrifying? Then you should definitely watch the next one. Will's whereabouts recorded the scariest encounter video when he was searching for solitude while setting up camp deep in the woods, far from any roads or people. He wanted quiet. He wanted peace. But what he got was something far worse.
You never fill them up enough either. Fill it up.
Yeah, that'll do. That's enough for one.
I'll do for Stuart Little. What about you?
As darkness swallowed the forest, he settled into his sleeping bag, listening to the stillness around him. No voices, no distant hum of civilization, just the occasional rustle of leaves and the wind sighing through the trees. It should have been peaceful. It should have been safe. Then out of nowhere, a scream. Not an animal, not the call of a distant coyote or the eerie hoot of an owl. This was human, raw, panicked, and close. His breath caught in his throat. It came again, tearing through the night, a sound so full of fear it sent ice through his veins. He lay frozen, every muscle locked in place, his mind racing. Was someone out there? Was someone hurt? Or worse, was something else happening?
I don't think I'm going to be getting much sleep tonight.
He wanted to move, to peek outside, to do something, but his body refused. He clutched his sleeping bag tighter as if the thin fabric could somehow protect him from whatever was lurking beyond the canvas walls of his tent. Then, silence. Minutes passed, maybe an hour. No footsteps, no voices, no indication that anything had ever been there.
Wish me luck, everybody.
Finally, he forced himself to breathe, to let the tension ease just enough to close his eyes. Maybe it was some kind of strange echo. Maybe it had been further away than it seemed. He told himself anything that made sense, anything to keep his fear from spiraling. However, it was anything but an incident that made sense. If this one scared you, then the next one is going to send chills down your spine as well. Lost Lakes recorded a strange and creepy video when he had set up camp expecting a peaceful night. But the forest had other plans.
Well, I am living every solo camper's nightmare right now. There appears to be an animal of some kind pacing around my tent.
At first, everything was quiet. The occasional rustling of leaves, the distant hoot of an owl, nothing out of the ordinary. But then, in the dead of night, a noise jolted him awake. Footsteps, slow, steady, pacing.
I woke up at 3 a.m. and just couldn't sleep. And then around 3:30, I started to hear this pacing sound. And 45 minutes later, it's still pacing around out there.
His breath hitched as he strained to listen. It wasn't wind. It wasn't a small animal scurrying through the underbrush. This was deliberate, heavy, circling his tent. Minutes passed, then a half hour. Still the sound remained. It was watching, waiting. He grabbed his GoPro, whispering into the camera to document what was happening. His voice was steady, but beneath it was an unmistakable tension. One wrong move, and whatever was out there might decide to act. 45 minutes. The pacing never stopped.
I'm going to talk it out with the GoPro and maintain sanity, and maybe the talking will make it go away. I'm just off Highway 101, west of Chapleau. So this is some very remote country despite being right off the highway, and it's the black bear capital of the world, so I'm thinking that's a possibility. To keep the paranoia away,
his mind raced through possibilities. A bear, a mountain lion, a person. But the way it moved, so methodical, so patient, it didn't fit. Then something brushed against his tent. Not a claw, not a paw. A single, deliberate touch. His body locked up. This wasn't the same thing as pacing outside. It was something else.
And the pacing continues. It's all gravel here. This is a kind of a boat launch for this little lake here. So I can hear everything on the gravel. I can hear all the footsteps, but anyway, the talking isn't making it go away, but it hasn't made a move toward the tent yet, so I don't know. Maybe it's just curious, and maybe it's biding its time for an attack. I don't know. But anyway, if you're a solo camper, these are some good ways to keep your sanity. So a few bonus items. Something literally just touched my tent before I turned on the camera, but I don't think it's whatever is making that noise. It was probably just a mouse or something.
Heart hammering, he stayed frozen, barely daring to breathe. His brain grasped for logic. Maybe a mouse, he reasoned. Maybe the wind, but deep down he knew better. The pacing continued unfazed. Whatever was out there, it knew he was awake. He forced himself to stay calm, to keep filming, to hold on to the thin thread of sanity keeping him from bolting into the unknown. He didn't sleep. He didn't move. He just listened, trapped in his own silent terror until the first light of morning.
But I'm not really appreciated right now. Second, there's no cell signal here. And third, I have to pee. It's really just comical, almost.
By then, the forest was empty. No tracks, no signs of anything. But he knew what he had heard. What had heard him. The last one is going to give you the worst scare ever. This sinister encounter was recorded by the channel Novice Wild Camper, who wanted a simple night under the stars, swaying in his hammock while the rain drummed against the leaves. Instead, he found himself trapped in the most unsettling night of his life. At first, the sounds were normal. Chestnuts crashing through the branches, small animals scurrying in the underbrush. But as the storm rolled in, something changed. The noises grew closer. Heavy footsteps, rustling, not running, not fleeing, just approaching. Every time he moved or flicked on his light, the sound stopped, but it didn't go away.
And 3 o'clock, it just started hammering it down with rain. That's not the issue. I sort of fell asleep to the sound of chestnuts crashing through the trees and hitting the deck. And it's the same sound every time, sort of crunch, 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 thump. After the rain started, I could just hear, and I know these are deer, muntjac, badgers, squirrels, whatever, but some crashing around that got nearer and nearer and nearer to my hammock. And every time I moved or got out to check, it stopped but didn't run away. So I'd expect if there was a deer or something, I'd hear it run off.
Then the rain let up, and the real horror began. A sudden, thunderous thud by his hammock made him lurch upright, heart pounding. He unzipped his shelter, a flashlight cutting through the darkness. There, on the forest floor, lay a rock that wasn't there before.
A massive, massive thud hits the ground and bounces. And I jumped up, unzipped it, put my torch on, and there's a rock on the floor that wasn't there when I went to bed. And I lay back down, and I'm just laying there listening. Then another one. And then another one. This went on 3 or 4 times at least. And then a large branch. There was no crack.
His stomach twisted. Then another one. Thump. Then another and another. Something was throwing them. And then came the branch. No crack, no splintering wood. Just a massive limb falling straight onto his tarp, bouncing onto his hammock before hitting the ground. And as he was narrating this story, another loud crack was heard outside.
I don't like it here. I'm getting packed up. Stuff the bacon walls.
A tree next to him suddenly crashed, as if something had been lurking in its branches, waiting. That was it. He was done. Forget breakfast, forget packing neatly. He grabbed his gear and bolted. Was it a perfect camping spot? No, it was a nightmare waiting to happen, and he would never come back. What do you think about these encounters? Let us know in the comments below. That's enough scare for today. If you enjoyed this terrifying video, then hit that like and subscribe button and explore other videos on our channel. Thanks for watching.